In spite of its brevity and limited bulk, the Analects remains throughout the centuries the most authentic and rewarding source for the study of Confucius the man and his thought. In addition to the key ideas of original Confucianism, the book also illumines certain aspects of life in ancient China. Illumines? You had me at illumines. You had me at illumines. So, what is this? Confucius. He's a smart man. He lived before, Christ, back in the, what was it, 1000 AD, maybe 2000 AD, comes out of ancient China. And it's like it's a rational, secular religion, isn't it kind of like let's see, the main points to Confucian, the Analects of Confucius. Lun Yu. Confucius lived 479 BC. Okay, so 500 BC, Confucius was alive, but only for 21 more years after that. So he lived to be 70, 80 fucking years old. Long-ass life, bunch of decades. The principal ideas advanced in the Analects of Confucius. Jin. The ideal relationship among human beings is the perfect virtue of men. Man is basically close to Jin by his very nature, but his actions should be controlled by Li, the rules of propriety. The Chun Tzu, or the ideal man, the Chun Tzu, is one who practices Jin in accordance with Li. Consequently, he treasures and seeks the Tao, i.e., the right way. And so, what do we know about Buddha? No, not Buddha. Confucius. What do we know about Confucius? Well, he's the person that Confucianism is named after. He is, Master Kong. Everybody knows him in China as Master Kong. He's a Chinese philosopher and politician of the spring and autumn period who's traditionally considered the paragon of Chinese sages. So he's the fucking sage of sages, right? Confucius's teachings and philosophy underpin East Asian culture and society. Yeah, don't they have to, study Confucianism or something? I'm not for sure. But you got Jin, you got Li, you got Jin and Li. Jet Li? No, Jin Li. Tao of Pooh? Yes. The Tao of Pooh. The Tao of Pooh. Buddhist? Do the Buddhists have a Tao? Or a Tao? Tally. Man is basically close to Jin by his very nature, but his actions should be controlled by Li. Jin Li Chun Tzu. Jin Li Chun Tzu. There you go. That's all you need to know for Confucius. So, what's up with Master Kong? Master Kong. The name Confucius is actually a Latinized form of the Mandarin Chinese Confuzi. What? Well, you know what Confucius says. You mean Confuzi? Sure, why not? Confuzi? So, Master Kong, it was coined by the early Jesuit missionaries to China. Okay. But we probably should call people by their own names, right? Why do we call Haiti Haiti? It's called a Yeti, right? A Yeti, they call themselves a Yeti. And then Germany calls themselves Deutschland. Deutschland? Nah, you're Germany. Deutschland, a bunch of Deutsches. You are a bunch of Deutsches for calling yourself Deutschland. What a bunch of Deutsches. His courtesy name and capping. Given that coming of age ceremony, known by all his older families, Zahongni, which means he's the second son in the family. Hey, Zahongni. Zahong. Oh, Master Kong. King Kong, no, Master Kong. King Kong. No, why you keep on doing it's Master Kong. Well, King Kong, he climbed up the fucking skyscraper. But we're in China, so that'd be Godzilla, not King Kong. Confucius would have known Godzilla, not Master Kong. would have known Godzilla, not King Kong. And who do you think would have won between Master Kong and King Kong? Probably King Kong, right? But maybe Confucius could have tricked him with his intelligence. The boy fooled the giant because he was able to squeeze water out of a rock. But it wasn't a rock, it was a piece of cheese. The stupid giant was all the way up at the top. He didn't know. He couldn't tell. He could not tell. So his family name is Kung. His own names were Chiyu and Chung Ni. Later he was known as Kung Fu Zu. Kung Fu Zu. So what's up, Kung Fu Zu? Master Kung, out of respect. Kung Fu Zu. So Fu Zu's the master part. Kung. He's Kung. Good old Kung. Kung the Kung. Kung the Kungians of the Kungs. The rickest of the Ricks was the Master Kung. Or was it Rurik? Rurik or Master Kung? Or maybe it was just some other vague figure out of history. Willis Russell. Who the hell knows that U.S. Marshal? Bass Reeves. Who knows that U.S. Marshal? Today there's a man named Kung Ti Cheng, officially recognized as a 77th generation descendant of Confucius, still lives in Taiwan. Orphaned at an early age, Confucius went to work while he was still in his teens. He held a number of minor posts in the government and the employ of the nobility. His service record and his self-cultivation soon won for him wide recognition. Students gathered around him for instruction in ethics, literature, and the art of government service. He was particularly respected for his knowledge of ancient rituals. Among his followers were men of diverse interests and temperaments, as myth and legend grew around the historical Confucius through the years. Biographical details make the story. He had one student who was too stingy, and he wouldn't let his master borrow his umbrella. If I give you my umbrella, then I will get wet. What an asshole. Why is he asking for other people? What? He was drenched in the rain at least once. As the legend says, constantly had to restrain a second student whose hot temper involved himself and his master in frequent difficulties. Oh, he's a hot-tempered one. Confucius is believed to have had a narrow escape from a third disciple whose reaction against his master's ceaseless moralistic admonitions amounted to a murderous intent. So somebody threw a fucking tomahawk at him. Did they do some Tecumseh, William Henry Harrison shit? Confucius, second hot temper. Okay, so he was, then this other student got mad a lot. This one threw a tomahawk, and then this other one, he wouldn't even let him borrow his umbrella. Of the central cluster of ideas that are discernible in Confucian thought, the idea of Jin is perhaps the greatest in importance. Jin is the foundation of Confucian ethics because Jin stands for the ideal relationship among human beings. I am the ideal relationship among human beings. The etymological significance of the Chinese character Jin yields a key to this idea. The symbols form the character mean two human beings, hence the suggestion that the ideal relationship between any two human beings. Jin suggests gentility, magnanimity, humanity, goodness of character, and benevolence. The last sense is the one most frequently used to translate this term. In short, Jin is the perfect virtue of human beings. It is the only road to the peace and harmony of a society. He who embraces the principle of Jin will treat people gently and humanely, and for him everything will go well. So there you go. That's Confucian. Political career, let's see, is born September 28th, 5051 BCE in Zhuland, Z-O-U, in the Shandong province. So Kong was born in Shandong. The area, Master Kong, was born in Shandong. The area was notionally controlled by the kings of Zehu, but effectively independent under the local lords of Lu, who ruled from the nearby city of Khufu. His father, Kong He, or Shu Liang He, was an elderly commandant of the local Lu garrison. His ancestry traced back through the Dukes of Song to the Shang dynasty, which had preceded the Zhou. Traditional accounts of Confucius's life relate that Kong He's grandfather had migrated the family from Song to Lu. Kong He died when Confucius was 3 years old, and Confucius was raised by his mother, Yan Zhengzai. His mother later died at less than 40 years of age. At age 19, he married Lady Qigon, and a year later, the couple had their first child, their son Kong Li. Qigon and Confucius later had 2 daughters together, one of whom is thought to have died as a child, and one was named Kong Jiao. So he had Kong Li, Kong Jiao, Jeho. Confucius was educated at schools for commoners, where he studied and learned the 6 arts. He was born into the class of Shi, between the aristocracy and the common people. Are you the rich? No, you the poor? Nah, I'm just kind of right there in the middle. He is said to have worked in various government jobs. Okay. So, he mourned 3 years after his mother had died. Political career. The state of Lu was headed by a ruling ducal house. So, Confucius. I don't think you could ever find out who the hell the guy was because they've idolized him for so fucking long from 500 BC. But in a way, they've kind of either evolved the philosophy or fucked it all up. So there's some, ideas that's worthy of. I like actually all the things that they're kind of saying. Jin is the ideal relationship. So what are we supposed to do? We're man among men. So how are we supposed to organize ourselves? And he says that's the perfect virtue. If you can figure out that relationship, that's the perfect virtue. That's the idea. What is the relationship of man among men? Yeah, everybody wants to be the tyrant, but okay, let's say no tyrants. Now what do we do? Man is basically close to Jin by his very nature, but his actions should be controlled by Li, the rules of propriety. So they're saying that we can get closer and closer to Jin, right? We're close to it already by our nature, but excellence, right? Through habit, you can breed excellence. So excellence is a routine. You got to. So the rules of propriety. The Chun Tzu, the ideal man, is the one who practices Jin in accordance with Li. So you're practicing Li because those are the only rules of propriety that you understand. But the more that you practice Li is the more closer that you get closer to Jin, which is in your nature. And Jin, of course, is the ideal relationship amongst human beings. How is man amongst, I guess, men and women? Where is man and woman amongst men and women? And can we be the ideal man or woman? Yes, by practicing Jin in accordance with Li, and then consequently treasure the Tao, the right way. What is the right fucking way, right? Okay, we're practicing Jin in accordance with Li, Ba Fang Gu. What the fuck are you talking about? We're just trying to figure out the right way here. And so Jin is our nature. Jin is close to our nature because we're supposed to get along with one another, right? I feel that too. There's a oneness, right? In terms of energy. You cannot destroy energy, so it always turns into something. Jin in accordance with Li, consequently he treasures and seeks the Tao. Confucius paints in Chun Tzu a picture of the ideal man. This perfect man has a thorough understanding of Jin and constantly practices it. Well, the perfect man is always going to the gym. Yep. Confucius says the perfect man always goes to the gym or exercises all of his 127 muscles. He has a thorough understanding of Jin, constantly practices Jin. He acts according to Li, the rules of propriety, and they're so much a part of his nature, he can't violate them. His uprightness, the expressions of his genuine nature is perfectly blended with that proper amount of refinement so that he is neither pedantic nor rustic in dealing with others. He's warm-mannered. He has a will of steel, and his appearance is always calm because his Jin keeps him from anxieties. His wisdom guards him against perplexities, and his courage dispels any possible fear. Heaven has created this virtue in me. What can Huan Tu Yi do to me? Heaven's will, always in favor of the good. son of the Lord, any man of good breeding, Sun Tzu. In spite of the brevity and limited bulk, the Analects remains throughout the centuries the most authentic and rewarding source. Confucius, wasn't Mao Zedong a Confucius? Heaven's Tao in Confucian terms is heaven's way or heaven's will. This will is supreme and above man's interference. If Confucius's use of the term heaven is perfectly consistent, then heaven's will should also be moral and in favor of the good. Here, another Confucius himself does not preach total blind obedience to one's parents. He sees the virtue of a son shielding his sheep-stealing father, but he also teaches the son to remonstrate mildly but persistently with his erring father. But father, if you keep on stealing the sheep, won't the people, the shepherd, get pissed off at you and want some kind of revenge? But father, you didn't raise that sheep. You put forth no effort. But father. As an educator, Confucius was equally earnest in teaching his students, regardless of their social status and family origins. He believed in the equal teachability of men, but he recognized the difference in intellect and talent among men. In the Analects, he accepts those who are born with knowledge as the best and those who learn after industrious study as the second type of mind. Nowhere in this book does Confucius suggest that everybody is born socially equal and is entitled to the right of to rule himself. He urges the ruler to learn the right way to govern. He urges his students to learn to be the best ministers possible in order to assist the ruler. That is not democracy. Confucius's remark about men born with knowledge is extremely provocative, but unfortunately the Analects does not yield any adequate exposition on Confucius's view of knowledge. In discussing how to study, Confucius acknowledges his own intention to observe and commit to memory what is observed, but he confesses that he cannot do anything without knowing about it first. Can you just do it without knowing about it first? When these statements are examined together, Confucius does hint at the possibility that some people are born with knowledge. Hence, these people can act spontaneously without the effort of learning how to act and without being aware of their knowledge. But Confucius carefully declines to accompany people of such super intellect, and he admits that the source of his knowledge is observation and intensive study. He also rules out the attainment of knowledge through meditation without the aid of books, because once he tried to think the whole day without eating and the whole night without sleeping, but nothing came of it. Furthermore, he does not separate the attainment of knowledge from action and practice. So what do we get out of Confucius? He insisted that society would not be peaceful if each individual man did not behave properly according to his social station. What? That meant for Confucius, the individual was important, but insofar he could help to bring about peace and harmony in society. You know, this damn Confucius, the more and more I learn about these damn religious fucking leaders, most frequently Confucius emphasized that Jin was not a lofty metaphysical abstraction beyond the comprehension of the ordinary person. On the contrary, he insisted that Jin lay close at hand for everyone to grasp. The difficulty, as he saw it, was that few people could remain firm for long, even among his distinguished disciples. He mentioned only one who succeeded in practicing Jin with constancy. And that, there, is the word of the Lord.